I think you'll constantly hear that New York is really unkind, that it's a rude city, but I tell you what, as long as you don't get in someone's way, it's the nicest city you'll ever experience. Every place that I've lived in New York, it's a pretty classic thing for a New Yorker to get their bodega, which is their corner store. It's funny because every time that I have moved apartments, I gauge my ability to explore the community based on whether or not the person behind the counter knows my order. And just recently, I finally got to that point. I finally got to the point that I walk into my bodega and the one man behind the counter says, bacon, egg and cheese, salt, pepper, ketchup. I said, yeah, that's it, that's my order. It's one of those rewarding things that even though you're in this large city, you make connections with people everywhere. You make small connections, small daily moments where you can laugh and smile. So, I am a mission-driven software engineer. That means that I work on technology, specifically in mental health care and in suicide prevention. And we help them in our app using a mixture of peer support, medication-assisted treatment, and other services. So we really provide a full care coordination for those individuals. I originally got into mental health tech because about 10 years ago, I was experiencing quite a lot of challenges myself. For a long time, I was growing up gay and closeted in Ohio. It was not easy. At that time, it was much more difficult to feel like I would be safe if I came out. I think for a very long time I had reinforced this idea that I could not be open, I could not be honest about who I was. And I think it was a very close association with that belief that turned into I was not worthy. I think that belief warped into a belief that I had to do everything I could to be more worthy. For some time, I had been actually trying to seek help. I think I realized that I was in quite a bad place when I was still a student at George Washington University, and trying to seek help, I found it impossible to get the help that I really needed. I actually found a clinical program for PhD students in clinical psychology, and at first it was very helpful. It was actually exactly what I needed. It gave me access to therapy for very low costs. Unfortunately, throughout that experience, when I first started exploring therapy and I first started pushing myself to really dive into this core belief of worthlessness, I had a lot of challenges with that, and I had a lot of struggles. At one point, it actually started causing nightmares. It turned into full-fledged insomnia. There was about a week where I was fully unable to sleep. I had maybe gotten an hour or two of sleep every night. At the time, my midterms were going on with my college classes. I was so stressed and I was so anxious and I was so worried about what I was doing to my friends, because I believed that in that moment, if I would reach out for help, I would be bothering my friends. In those moments, that was when I really got desperate for a solution. That was when I got desperate for an out. And it was at that time, after one particularly bad day and after a bad exam, that I got so stressed out, I had gone back to my dorm, which was on about a 5th story. Most dorms, especially on higher stories, will prevent their windows from being opened more than about 6 or 8 inches. But at the time, my room didn't have those. And I remember noting that in my mind and thinking it was weird. But of course, in the midst of this complete panic attack, this multi-day panic attack, multi-day experience of insomnia, when I was suicidal and I needed a solution, I needed an out, that was my escape. That was my chance to relieve myself and to unburden the people around me. So I did. I actually opened my window, and on a 5th story, I sat on the window frame for about 15 minutes, really willing myself to jump, really trying to get myself to go head first. But I had turned around and I saw myself in my mirror. And I remember feeling, at the sight of myself, angry, feeling so angry. I climbed back through the window and I punched the mirror. Something about that purely physical experience brought me out of that mental crisis that I was having. And that was the moment, with my fist bleeding and full of glass from the mirror, it was that moment that I realized I really needed help. And that help was not going to come through suicide. That was not my solution. That was not my way out. Help was calling a friend and saying, I need to go to the hospital. Can you come get me? I don't know that there was any one thing that anyone could have said to me in that moment, which is really unfortunate. But what it did take was people understanding that I was in that place, and people knowing that it would be a long process, but that the process works. Knowing that there was a solution. There was a world in which I could be healthy, and there was a world in which I could have love and have friends and be successful and be worthy of all of those things. So looking back 10, 11 years later and thinking how far I've come, it's shocking. I never would have imagined that from that dorm room in college, experiencing this mental health crisis, that 11 years later, 10 years later, I'd be in New York City working in a job that I love, experiencing these new connections with people that I never could have imagined meeting, that I would be having amazing nights just hanging out with my sisters and getting to talk to them and getting to know them better. It's shocking to think of the beauty in the world that I would have missed out on. I've learned over the years about what is best for me. I've become a little bit more immune to other people's suggestions or, pop culture that suggests you need to do something to be healthy. And I think what's beneficial about that is that once you get through this very hard journey, it's not easy, but you start to learn what is best for you and what will keep you healthy. I still go to therapy. I found a therapist who actually understands me and who I can speak to, and a therapist who can call me on my bullshit. I think that is first and foremost what helps me unlearn the belief that I am inherently not worthy. It's the ability to be challenged by an unbiased person in your life. So I will constantly suggest that everyone go to therapy, regardless of your mental health. I just think that it is so helpful. I don't think necessarily that public speaking and sharing such raw emotional experiences with everyone is for everyone, but I certainly think that if you can tell someone close in your orbit, someone you love, about your experiences, and that's the first person that you've opened up to about this, I think it changes everything. At first, it's what you need to hear when you don't believe you're worthy. You can talk to someone and they can remind you that you are worthy. Even if you don't believe it, they can tell you that. And and you can seek help from that. You can start the process, you can start the journey of recovery.